Construction projects are temporary by nature. Your crew finishes one building and then moves to the next. So how do you build lasting purpose and meaning when the work itself is transient? That's what Module 2 tackles, and it's more practical than you might think. Let's get into it. Okay, Bruce, purpose-driven leadership. I can already hear some listeners saying, this sounds like a corporate retreat. So sell me on why this matters for a foreman running a concrete crew.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When people hear purpose-driven leadership, it's all this abstract, fluffy interpretation of what's going on.
Touchy-feely stuff.
Exactly. And really what it is, it's especially in the construction industry, the good old Alberta saying, right, get her done.
Get her done.
Get her done, right? That's in my South African version. But get her done is the way, the mantra, if you will. And the problem with get her done is that the traditional way of getting things done is, I see that this needs to be done, so just get it done. There's a complete disconnect between my job as a construction laborer, a construction worker, and how I identify, right? And it's unfortunate. I speak with a lot of construction professionals, leaders, and they talk about their laborers. They talk about, and I quote, their grunts.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And the word might not be shared with everybody else, but people are maybe treated that way. People perceive themselves that way. And these employees eventually start to lose that purposeful connection between what they actually do and the impact that it actually has on why they're doing it in the first place. So that purposeful leadership is saying, we need to do this for this reason, and this is the impact that you're making. I can also hear a lot of construction folks telling me right now saying, well, we just got to get the job done. I'm not worried about that. We're on a timeline. We've got to get it done. The problem with that is the work, especially construction workers, is very transient. We keep them for a period of time. We then lay them off sometimes. A lot of the times they come back. Sometimes they don't even come back. And we continuously struggle with this turnover, this retention, or the good old saying, I just can't get good help these days, right? There's a reason for that. And purpose-driven leadership starts to reconnect and starts to close that gap in terms of, why am I doing this in the first place? I can just find an extra $3-4 an hour next door,
right?
And I'm just as good as I am, if not better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When, like, I've worked construction, and you have to believe that there's a reason why you're doing it, right? Yeah. Not only you have your personal reasons, of course, building a life, building a future for yourself and your family, but doing work that matters.
Absolutely.
And the leader has to be able to communicate that and, rally the troops, as they say, so that that can happen. Right?
You remind me of a term that's called discretionary effort.
Okay.
And that's not my term. It's a old term that's been used to describe the additional effort that employees put into something. So if our listeners think about, or viewers think about, that employee that is absolutely outstanding, arrives on time, might even leave late, always making sure that they get the job done correctly. If I could clone so-and-so, it'd be an amazing place, right? And there's a reason why that person is like that. The reason is because of discretionary effort, and discretionary effort comes about because he or she are connected to what they're doing. They understand the purpose around what they're doing. If construction leaders understand this and interpersonalize this, it's absolutely crazy what they can achieve in terms of efficiencies, productivity, and really have an outstanding crew.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about the Golden Circle framework in this module. How does that translate into construction?
Well, the first and foremost, the Golden Circle comes from one of my favorite people to listen to and learn from is Simon Sinek.
Okay.
And Simon talks about the Golden Circle, and for lack of getting into too much detail, but I encourage viewers to go and check it out. But the Golden Circle primarily talks about people traditionally and naturally work from the outside in. And what that means is that what we discussed earlier on is not necessarily understanding why they are there or understanding their why. And it goes back to that purpose-driven leadership is to ask, what's the purpose of me doing this? So, my CEO tells me as a site superintendent, we've got to go and, make sure that we get that retirement village completed. And I say, okay, well, what's the timeline? What's my budget, et cetera? I go in there and I say to my crew, toolbox meeting first thing in the morning, we've got to get that concrete poured by this time, right? That would be the outside in. The golden circle flips that around, starts with why me, what's my why? And when purpose-driven leadership comes in, that big why comes out. Instead of saying we've got to get that concrete poured by this time, I would probably say where the why comes in is that we've got to get that concrete poured by this time because people are expecting to move in next week. We've got to ensure that it's safe. We're not dealing with juniors, we're dealing with seniors. And what we're doing over here is making a huge difference to the community because of X, Y, and Z. So there's a reason why we're hustling. There's a reason why we're driving. And, talking to a construction client yesterday, there are two components to any construction, and quite frankly, most industries, that determine success: quality and timeline. You can pour that concrete, and you can meet the timeline, but if you don't pour that concrete and finish it up correctly, you've got quality or deficiency issues. Not only is that a profitability problem, but you're dealing with people, right? Safety is incredibly important. So when people start to excel on crews with those two components in mind, what's actually happening is they've either got a fantastic crew leader that is giving them the why behind this, giving them the mission behind it, or your crew or members of the crew are actually understanding the why behind this. They try to get to understanding of the why behind this. So you can imagine if the leader is purposeful, the crew brings that as well. You can imagine what can be achieved on site.
Yeah, that's when you have a really good working team and synergy. And it's not, you can actually do so much more with a team of A players, right?
Absolutely.
I think it was Steve Jobs says, you know what, a team of A players can run circles around B and C players, right?
That's right.
I don't know the exact quote, but
I know
basically
what you're talking about,
when you have that, when you have that connection between the leadership and the crew, they can do amazing feats.
Huge. And it's unfortunate because there are a lot of construction leaders out there, people that are likely listening to this, even business owners of construction companies that, you know what, right now I don't have time for this. I just got to get the job done, et cetera, et cetera. And even though I totally acknowledge and understand that is short-term pain. What we're talking about here is long-term pain if this is not dealt with. It has to be dealt with, right? And it also goes back to the tough Alberta exterior, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are tough. Yeah, we're built for tough, et cetera, but every human being, regardless of industry, is driven the same way. And we're talking about purpose and we're talking about why. So give them that.
All right, let's talk about purpose statements. Mm-hmm. So you have participants actually build purpose statements in this module. What does that look like?
Well, it's purpose statements. People automatically naturally think of mission statements and vision statements. And just to give some context, the reason I say that in a little bit of a sarcastic manner is because we've been given a lot of mission, vision, value information at least since the early 90s. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't really impacted bottom line in businesses. And not because they're not important, they're critical. But it takes time to build values. It takes time to build the mission that those values support in driving. So they are very important, but they don't provide immediate bottom line impact. Now, a purpose statement, on the other hand, is going back to what we were discussed. What is our purpose for being here? Every single human being moves forward because they believe that they feel that they're making traction. If they're not making traction, they're not contributing. They don't feel that they're they're doing anything productive. But when they're given their, let's call it their North Star, they can see where they're going to, or they're given that purpose, right? They then drive towards it. Now, the statement is important because the statement is driven through emotion. And human beings, as we might know, we react emotionally first, above and beyond everything else. So the purpose statement is a powerful statement because it needs to, everybody needs to identify with it, but it's easy to identify with as opposed to a mission statement, because our purpose right now is to achieve A, B, and C through the project for this reason. So by the time we get to the end, right, we've achieved something. We've hit our purpose. People may also say, well, what's the difference between a mission statement and a purpose statement? A mission statement, in my opinion and experience, is a little bit more long-term. Purpose statement can be as short as, what is our purpose today? What do we have to hit today? Because if we don't hit it today, we don't get to do that tomorrow, right? So there's a lot more short-term orientated bursts of energy, which again, people prefer to do as opposed to waiting for, 3 weeks or a month or 2 years from now.
Yeah, it's the small win that helps you win the mission overall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's that short-term incentive, short-term wins, right?
Yeah.
And I love to say this because people, a lot of managers, a lot of business owners would also give me the strange look when I say, money is not a primary satisfier. And it isn't. It's a short-term satisfier. But man alive, when you can, especially when we go in lower economic cycles or more periods that are more slow, like we're going through right now, a lot of people are saying, I need an increase. You can't give them the increase. What is left? Well, purpose is left, right? And I'm finding a lot of really well-to-do companies, construction companies, they can't do it right now, but they are exceptionally creative in terms of purpose, giving people that purpose, giving people that understanding. If we can get through this, including the purpose, we can then talk about increases at that point. Because if we do get through this, this is what it does for our company. And notice the words that I'm using, our company, our team. Mm-hmm. That is purpose-driven leadership again.
Yeah, that's right. You have to get buy-in from the group, from the team.
Absolutely, yeah.
Otherwise, you won't be able to accomplish anything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can hear a site super saying they're lucky they have a job. Well, again, it's a very short-term perspective because they're lucky they have a job. It doesn't last too long.
No, and it's funny because we have a shortage of skilled labor in Canada in general. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people out there who are just desperate to get somebody on their team.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's not good enough to have someone who is there to fill a spot or fill a slot. They need to have people who are wanting to learn a new trade, new skill, and actually become skilled in that so they can perpetuate the next generation of tradespeople here.
Yeah.
So having that purpose and giving them a reason why they should care about what they're doing is so important for anybody right now. So anyone who has the attitude like, you're lucky you have a job, it's like, no, you're lucky you have somebody there who's willing to learn.
Absolutely. And, right? and commit to the cause, and right?
Commit to the cause, right? Now, you mentioned the transient nature of construction projects. So how do you solve for that in purpose-driven leadership?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, we work with a mix of construction companies that, very few of them, they don't lay off at the end of the year. They want to keep their team. And not everybody can afford that. Not everybody wants to do that. And that's absolutely fine. But transient labor force or employees is fine if the expectation is there, if the understanding is there. You can, and again, another reason why purpose statements or purpose is so critically important and powerful is because there is purpose in long-term permanent, but there's purpose in short-term as well. So if we are hiring for the season and we are keeping people there because of work during the construction season, and we have to lay off after that, right? There is still purpose. So if people understand the reality of seasonality, right? One of the key things we find is that a lot of construction companies hope that Bruce will come back next season. Bruce doesn't always come back next season because Bruce might get a job elsewhere that provides him with year-round employment. What we find is that Bruce actually returns when there's purpose-driven culture in the business. So transient doesn't necessarily negate retention and engagement. Transient actually produces, it still maintains that loyalty and people coming back. So that's the important part, is don't think that transient labor can't have purpose and can't be retained and engaged.
I agree. I agree. That is because in Canada, like especially where we are, it's very, very much seasonality in a lot of different aspects, especially in building trades, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But if you can provide a good culture and they just want to be there because they enjoy being with that company, then, they do whatever they do in the wintertime, whether it's, some kind of side hustle work somewhere else, you can draw them back if they have a reason to.
You just reminded me, I've done, I've lost count, thousands and thousands of interviews in my career so far. And every single, let me not say every single, 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10 times, why did you like working there? The people, right? Why did you decide to go back there again? Either my boss and or the people. And when you ask them, a great question that we always ask is that, if you were my best friend and I trusted you with everything that you said, and I came to you and I said, Jill, I want to work at ABC Company. Tell me why I should work there and tell me why I shouldn't work there. And the why I should work there, which, by the way, is what we're talking about, is always the people. And I can say with confidence, is always the people. And a lot of the times, my supervisor was inspirational. My supervisor gave me a reason for wanting to continue working there. Or my supervisor inspired me to work this way, gave me a reason for what I was doing, as opposed to just being that day in and day out worker coming in, waiting for my check and going home. That's what you get primarily, which again justifies why we shouldn't take this very lightly. Don't overcomplicate this, because at the end of the day, having purpose is why people are listening or viewing us right now. This is why you and I are sitting down talking with people. So purpose is powerful.
Let's talk about field application for Module 2.
Yeah, so the field application is exactly what we've been discussing. So participants actually develop a purpose statement. And one of the first things we say is, this is not about semantics. This is not about a job description or a vision or a mission statement. This is about starting with you. When you think about your own why do you do what you do? A lot of people actually answer, because I need a paycheck and this is my job. What keeps you doing this? What makes you feel motivated to do this? Well, I get the opportunity to do that. That's when we stop and we say, fine, let's dig a little bit deeper into that. What drives you to get up every day and come in and do this kind of work? And then we ask the question, do you think that drives the people that you work with, or the people that work for you in the field? And a lot of them say, I don't know. Well, if you did know their purpose, if you did understand why they decided to come to work and work with you, or work for you, if that's what you want to call it, and you could leverage off of that, wouldn't that make a significant impact? And most people would say, well, it sounds reasonable. Maybe, I don't know. And then we get them to take that and saying, go use that. But before you impose it, and I mean that in a positive way, but before you impose it or prescribe it, ask your guys, Why do you get up every morning and come and start the shift at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning and blah, 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 blah? Gets people thinking about why they're there in the first place. A lot of them are thinking immediately, I need a job, I need a paycheck. Well, here's the leader's opportunity to say, well, this is not just about a job and a paycheck. This is something a little bit more deeper than that. We're doing something purposeful. I drive down the Henday and I see the guys working on LRT line, for instance, in Edmonton. And they're there early in the morning and the guys are working, and I'm thinking to myself, do they really know what they're actually doing, what they're actually contributing to, as opposed to just coming in and slogging away and just going home at the end of shift? What these people contribute, it's impressive. It's mind-opening what they can do. But I don't necessarily think they realize how important and what contribution that they're actually making to the city of Edmonton, for example, right? That in itself is purpose. And me thinking about, do they actually know how valuable they are? Is my yearning to tell them how valuable they are. If their supervisors and their companies tell them how valuable they are and what purpose they're actually driving towards, man alive, the value return on investment you get from that. And again, I want to remind people this program is directly connected and measured with profitability. So when we see these ticks of profitability margin increasing, they're not increasing because the guys decided not to make mistakes and did rework today. They're increasing for the most part because, in this case, they're understanding purpose, they're aligned with the purpose, and they're driving towards it and executing towards that.
And I think once you have, the leader who is engaged in developing and driving home the purpose for the people, it adds a layer of personal accountability to the mission.
That's right.
Personal accountability. So they won't stay up too late or have too much to drink the night before. They'll be on time for their shift, or they'll be even early. They'll do their best work during the day so that there isn't rework. And these are the incremental things that change in the person themselves. So they hold that personal accountability for the portion that they're doing, right? Yeah. And then also that could foster in the team, in the crews, them holding their other cohorts accountable for their work too.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they all have the same purpose and mission and they internalize it, then that's where you see the change in the bottom line.
Absolutely.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, you mentioned a very important word there, which is such a it lacks a lot in not just construction but industry generally, is accountability. Just because we have a purpose statement and everybody has a purpose and we all sing kumbaya at the end of the day, doesn't mean that everybody is going to be engaged. You may have people, and a manager asked me the other day, what happens if my guys don't have the purpose inside them? What happens if I can't get them engaged? And I said, well, number one, there is nothing more powerful than peer group accountability, is what you're talking about. If the supervisor and the peers or can't get this person to engage and drive forward, the next question you have to ask yourself, does he or she really belong in the crew? And this is something that I know a lot of leaders struggle with, because I don't want to lose hands, not literally, but I don't want to lose people. I don't want to lose hands. I need these to get the work done. Every time you say that to yourself and you tolerate the lack of accountability and person getting away with murder, right? It disengages everybody else. It's like the rotten apple in the basket of beautiful apples. Eventually, all of them become rotten. There needs to be accountability. The way that you determine accountability and you drive towards accountability is purpose. And if someone is not committed, I've always said you can drive business forward by not being 100% agreement. But if you're not 100% committed, forget about it. And if someone is not purpose-driven, is not committed in being a part of the team and the drive, please don't keep them on, right? Let them find something where they do fit.
Absolutely. Well said. Next episode, we move from purpose to problem solving. Module 3A is critical thinking and problem solving, the 5 why technique, root cause analysis, and how to stop putting out the same fires every week. See you then.